Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Tennis Weekly with Joel, Kim, and Chris. On today's French Open finals catch-up,
Iga Swiatek cruises to a fourth crown in Paris.
Carlos Alcaraz battles to his first Roland Garros title.
And Coco Gauff wins her first ever doubles Grand Slam.
Kim, Chris, today is the 9th of June, and we are here to catch up on the finals of the French Open at Tennis Weekly HQ. Iga Swiatek and Carlos Alcaraz are your French Open 2024 singles champions, and what a ride it has been over the last 2 weeks. Carlos Alcaraz has become a three-time Grand Slam champion with a comeback victory against Alexander Zverev that already, at 21 years of age, puts him one Australian Open title away from completing a career slam. Iga Swiatek as well also secured her fourth French Open crown in Paris from match point down in the second round, no less, with a rather one-sided victory over the ever-smiling Italian Jasmine Paolini in the final. And elsewhere, there was a first ever doubles crown for Coco Gauff, who teamed up with Katerina Siniakova in their first ever event. And Mate Pavic became one of the very, very few to achieve the career Golden Slam in doubles. Very, very full-on episode, guys. We've got a very special announcement coming up ahead of the grass court season in the second half. But yes, the French Open, Paris, it is over for another year. 2 weeks have gone by. And what do you know? King Carlitos has come good in a fifth set once again.
It's a tale of 2 weeks. When you say it's 2 weeks of the slam, it feels like it's been almost three
seasons. It was
seasons.
the best of times. It was the worst of times.
It honestly feels like that. And Kim and I were there for the worst of times. We still had a good time.
It's also funny because all the Master Series leading up have been like over 2 weeks. And then, you know, we've had a Grand Slam over 2 weeks. But this feels very different, doesn't it? Because we expect it and it's jam-packed more with action. And we know what round's happening at what time.
We're not sick of it, are we?
No, absolutely not.
No.
And we've had two very different singles finals, I think, you know, it's fair to say, but both winners, both champions, very much iconic, you know, for different reasons and for setting records at such young ages. And I think this is really a tournament that's really celebrating kind of the current and future champions who are here to stay, I think.
I think I've lost track of just all the records that both Alcaraz and Swiatek have achieved at such young ages, and it just keeps going and going and going, and even these two finals, more records have been broken, and there's so much information I feel to take in given the size of their achievements.
Definitely a tournament for the stats lovers, I think, you know, who love to like see those records being broken or the youngest this to do that, and you know, it's very symbolic, I think, for many reasons. And we'll be getting on to, you know, all the various finals, the doubles as well, because we've had some more records there as well. Collector set as well. Obviously, the result that everyone's been waiting for. But let's start with the men's final because it's literally finished about 40 minutes ago. The fifth set finish with Carlos Alcaraz falling onto his back on Philippe Chatrier. A celebration, I have to say, quite similar to Rafa Nadal, obviously, which, you know, do you remember back in the day when he first won his first of 14 titles?
I actually don't, Kim, because it was so long ago.
Because you weren't even into tennis then,
He
Joel.
was wearing green.
Following it.
Was he wearing a green sleeveless number? I feel like it was that year.
Pirata pants, yeah.
I always remember it was against Mariana Puerta, who was also a very surprise French Open finalist. That always stuck with me for that final.
I didn't know that. I remember watching it, but I've forgotten who that was. Yeah,
we've had some strange men's French Open finalists, I think, in the past. I mean, I know we've had like the same champion for so long between Nadal and also Djokovic, and we've got a new name now with Carlos Alcaraz. But before then, I swear we just had some really surprise
token finalists. Yeah, the rogue one.
I mean, I think, you know, if you hark back to when Rafa first won his in Roland Garros in 2005. I think, had just turned 19. But here we are many, many years later. Carlos Alcaraz, 21 years of age.
Oh, he's well past it, isn't he,
his
Kim?
first Roland Garros. So old.
He's old, yeah.
I mean, he's got 2 slams already on 2 different surfaces. He's now got 3 slams on 3 different surfaces. He's never lost a Grand Slam final. He has a 100% perfect record in those finals. The youngest ever men's player in the Open era to have won slams on all 3 surfaces. All he needs is an Aussie Open now, and he's done the career slam. And just think how long it was before, you know, the likes of Rafa and Novak managed to kind of complete the set. And it seemed to be that they were really trying to get that one, that elusive slam or surface for a long time. And Alcaraz is, 75% of the way there. And he feels like he's only just burst on the scene.
Really does. And the thing that's all the more impressive is it feels like he only just burst onto the clay court scene this year. I mean, he only played one tournament, I believe, in the run up, and that was Madrid, which is not the best preparation. And it just makes you think that, does he need any preparation? Because whatever surface it is, he can just turn up and maybe even just win another slam title. So watch out, Australia.
Yeah, the score today was 6-3, 2-6, 5-7, 6-1, 6-2. Really ramping it up in those last two sets. Very dominant score lines. And arguably Alcaraz in that third set, he was 5-2 up, theoretically should have won that set. Could have got the job done in four. But today, yeah, just that kind of consistency and increased confidence and kind of security. I'm coming in, I'm the slam winner. Zverev, his previous Grand Slam final, very nervy stuff, fell, at the final bit, and perhaps that was weighing on his mind today in terms of what he brought to the court.
I thought that was what the story was going to be after the first 2 points, because in the match it was double fault followed by double fault, and I was like, oh my word, have we teleported to the Zverev back like 3-4 seasons ago? Because it was a bit of a nervy start. I mean, it was a nervy start by Zverev, but it was also a little bit of a nervy start by Alcaraz as well, because they did trade breaks, and I was almost a little bit surprised by that, given, as I say, their kind of pedigree. I thought they would have been kind of good and ready to go for the moment.
It's always a big deal, a slam final. So I think we could probably forgive them a couple of nerves coming out there, especially when I think Zverev, a lot of people are talking about him as being one of the favorites going in. I think that's an added pressure, an expectation when you haven't done it. You're 27, you were playing on these courts when you were 17, and you're playing against a player like Alcaraz, who previously last year, obviously the nerves did get to him. So ultimately, backing up a slam is very tricky. And since Wimbledon, he hasn't backed up the slam, but obviously now he's really cemented himself at the top of the sport and breaking records of the big three, from being a question mark as to when he would win the next slam. He's done it. But do you think that the nerves, I was going to say, we talked about this beforehand in our semi-final catch up. Did the nerves last? You mentioned they kind of started for Zverev at the beginning, and the break points do make you think that maybe it was a bit nervy. Only taking 6 of 23. That's only 26% of break points converted for Zverev. Were nerves a factor in this final?
I think they were, to be honest. I think the more that match went on, it did become much more of a case of who was going to hold their nerve, because of all the breakpoint, opportunities. Going into the match, I thought, Zverev's serve was going to be rock solid. We were going to get tie breaks. We were going to be going deep in sets. But actually, that wasn't really the case. And, Alcaraz really did kind of set the tone, I think, in that first set, in terms of, I think Zverev was serving very well. I think he was serving at kind of around 70-75% first serves in. But Alcaraz in his return was just taking apart the Zverev service games, and it really, I think, started himself on the right foot, and it meant that we didn't get set score lines I think I was expecting kind of going into it.
Yeah, and I was going to say, Kim, on the return side of things, we don't talk that much about Alcaraz and his return as much as we probably should, because Zverev is obviously one of the best servers in the game. He only hit 8 aces across 5 sets, but Alcaraz seemed to be able to break him for fun throughout the match. Is he probably one of the best returners on the tour, if not heading to be almost Djokovic level when it comes to the return?
Yeah, I was about to say, well, Djokovic is the pinnacle of returners, so he's who you want to emulate. But yeah, lots of breakpoint chances. So Carlos definitely getting in there on the Zverev serve. And yeah, Zverev did not serve, badly throughout the match. It wasn't his best service performance, but it wasn't terrible. So absolutely, I mean, you've got to be a good returner to be a slam winner. I don't think you can have one without the other. And I think, it's also about taking your chances. If you're getting those opportunities, you can't win a slam unless you know how to convert and seize those opportunities and those moments. And that is really what separates the winners from, the runners up, sad to say. So I think overall it's a bit of, I think mostly it's Alcaraz ramping it up, over 5 sets. Very similar to the Sinner match in the sense that, he went 2 sets to 1 down, but those final 2 sets just, stepped it up when he needed to. And that's what the true, great champions do. But my question for you guys is, what can Zverev do if he's in this situation again, to be the one lifting the trophy at the end, because there's 2 finals he's been in now, 2 losses, both over 5 sets. What is the one thing he needs to start working on?
I think the big thing that he has the game. I do think we've talked about sort of the nerves in the moment, but ultimately he should have a serve that can serve you off the court and he can rely on in those moments. If you look at the Rome final, he did serve Jarry off the court. He didn't have to play that well off the ground because he was controlling his side of the court so well. So ultimately, when it comes to really making inroads, he needs to focus on his second serve is a really big sort of issue, I would say. There's a big drop off between his first serve and his second serve. I think his first serve average speed for the mat was 207 kilometers an hour. And then for the second serve, it's 165, which is quite comparable to Carlos Alcaraz at 162. So I think if you do have a big serve, you do have that extra height it's coming down from, you do have to take a bit more risk at times in those key moments. And I think at times he does come off the ball. I talked about this in the last podcast as well. You really have to seize that opportunity. And that's what champions do. It's not a case he doesn't have a champion's game. I think it's a case that he has to take it to his opponent. And he can't expect, like in the team match when he had his last Grand Slam final, that an Alcaraz will give him the same opportunities because he won't. He's a seasoned competitor at age 21 with multiple slams. It's a very different contest. So probably it's a good experience, but I think that the next one, if he doesn't win his next final, it will start to become a bit of an Ons Jabeur, Casper Ruud situation.
Yeah, I think for Zverev, I think the question is, it's almost kind of like, if and not now, when?
Yeah.
He's not a youngster anymore. He's in that generation of players that should, in theory, I think, be reaching the peak of their powers, the peak of their career, and they need to kind of make hay on it. And he's been in 2 Grand Slam finals now. He's been very, very close on each time. I mean, here being 2-1 up, as Chris was saying, I think he needed to go for it a bit more. I think he was a little bit kind of hoping, Alcaraz will be depressed and disappointed and he will go into his shell a bit. And to be fair, there were kind of a couple of signs of that, because Alcaraz did kind of get angry at the umpire in terms of the conditions. He didn't think there was enough clay on the court. It was almost kind of being played like an orange painted hard court.
Yeah.
But Alcaraz, he rose to the occasion and he upped his levels again. And I think he took, Zverev by surprise there. And just on the Zverev serve as well, I think, Alcaraz, I think did a good job in terms of, I mean, he stood so far back on the court to give him the best possible chance of getting the ball into play. And yes, at times that meant that, Zverev was coming to the net and there was a lot of serve at volley at play. And I think that was one of the reasons that helped him, get to a 2-1 lead. But I think that Alcaraz knew, it's like, if I can just get into the rally, then I'm going to back myself.
It's in his favor. Yeah,
exactly.
The longer the points went, the more likely someone like Alcaraz is to win those points. And I think maybe it's a quality that can't be defined. Champions have. I think we've talked about it a lot, that generationally, potentially the mid-gen, the current gen, I always get confused. What are we calling it again? We're calling it
yeah. I think it's the in-between
the original
gen.
old next gen.
Yeah.
The original old next gen.
The
lost
gen.
generation.
Lost generation, we can call it that. I think ultimately the difference is that the mentality didn't exist in the same way. I think Jannik Sinner and Carlos Alcaraz have that quality that I think that potentially
they've got no baggage.
I think that they're playing in a way that when the big 3 first came up, they played very carefree because they did get those triumphs early on. I think Medvedev has that quality, but I think probably getting a little bit it's getting a bit tricky for him. He's been in lots of opportunities where it hasn't quite worked out. Whereas Alcaraz, 3 from 3, I mean, a quick mention of that. I mean, how impressive is that for a 21-year-old to win their first 3 Grand Slam finals? I mean, I can't really think of a player that has won their first 3. Potentially, did Sharapova win her first 3? I'm thinking, no, she didn't. I'm actually not sure. Maybe she did. I'm thinking
I don't know. Would she have lost one to Serena? But I mean, it is remarkable.
Oh, she would have lost one to Serena, 2007 Australian Open. That is true. Before she won the Australian Open in 2008. That's true. So, but still, even more impressive. We can't name someone who's done it.
No.
It's so impressive.
And also the lack of time on court. I mean, what do you think were the expectations going into the French Open for Carlos Alcaraz from his team. You know, Juan Carlos Ferrero, Carlos Moya. What would you think their realistic expectations were kind of going in? Do you think they genuinely thought 2 weeks later they would be thinking, Carlos Alcaraz is going to be the singles champion in 2024?
I think they know how talented he is. I think anyone who spends time with him will know just what his talent level is and his ceiling is. And I think that they think he can get even better. I think whether he can do it at the slam or peak at the right time, he's so young that he hasn't really entered a Grand Slam with this little preparation before. So this is probably showing to them that he's maybe even more talented than they even thought, which I think is already very, very high. But I think maybe they'd be a little bit concerned after that De Jong match, because that was anything but convincing. So something happened where he was able to switch into gear, because after that quarter match, it just felt like he was just playing tennis from, another planet compared to what he was playing in that second round match. And I was wondering kind of, is it a case that the greats are able to play themselves into tournaments? But I didn't think that the greats were able to necessarily, heal themselves from injury or poor form necessarily always. So,
I would have said Novak Djokovic is a prime example of someone
he can heal himself in one
Yeah.
match. He can heal himself. But one change of ends, he can.
One change of ends, yeah.
Instant magical powers. Yeah, I mean, Alcaraz certainly. It's unbelievable, really, the fact he's done it on all three surfaces. And it made me laugh actually when he was saying, I don't think there's enough clay on the court. I was kind of thinking you should be saying there's loads of clay on the court, because otherwise you might get some people saying, well, it's not really a clay court, it's just another hard court slam with a dusting of clay. But any naysayers out there, it's very hard to be a naysayer with Carlos Alcaraz.
What could have happened though with that, Kim? So I was thinking there's not enough clay on the court. What was he hoping to achieve in that moment?
Yeah, it was like a wheelbarrow with clay on the side.
Out.
I've never seen that at the French Open in the final, that they're going to come and dust the court over again.
I mean, it's like asking Wimbledon for more grass.
Yeah.
Sorry, we'll just go to the garden centre and
we'll just
we'll water the plants. We'll come back in like 6 months or so. There'll be
the groundskeepers on the way. Yeah.
I mean, that moment I think was quite interesting, because he doesn't typically kind of get flustered or panic, I think, and that's, I think, one of the reasons he has such an elite mentality. Because even Zverev, like, I swear, like in the first game he was like looking to his box. He had that sort of worried facial expression. He was chomping on his chains as normal.
Chain, yeah,
and his golden chains around his neck. But I think with Alcaraz, he doesn't panic. I think in the Sinner match, for example, I know we spoke about Sinner having hand cramps, but Alcaraz was also feeling the effects of that match. He was feeling the effects of this match. He had the trainer on to massage his legs. But I think it was interesting hearing him in after his semi-final talk about that. Even though he goes through those moments, he doesn't panic. He still is able to sort of relax himself. And we talk about his physicality, the fact that his body is built to go 5 and last. I think that also gives him, it gives him an edge. And although I think Zverev was able to stick with him, up to a certain point, even when Alcaraz was feeling it, he was just able to turn it up even more.
It's the maturity, I think, that he has that's so rare at someone of his age. And obviously he's played a lot of tennis for someone who's 21, but I feel like, I don't know what you guys think, but it's almost like there's like a system reset at the end of each set. He's like, well, that one happened, on to the next. Because in that Sinner match, every time I thought, you know what, he's gone off the boil, he's actually probably not going to win this match, potentially. He then finds his form. And then the next set, even if he loses a set, he's like, right, here we go again. And it felt like that was quite similar in this match, where in the Sinner match, they exchanged sets. No one won 2 consecutive sets until the very end when Carlos did. And in this match, they were splitting sets in many ways. And I thought he was going to take the third set. He didn't take that set. But then after that, the disappointment of being 5-2 up, he then took a set 6-1. And it really feels like that's one of the key things, is that you don't live in the past of what's happened in a match. He's able to then focus on playing better and doing what he needs to do to still turn it around. And I think that's what makes him so dangerous at 5 sets. I think he's better at 5 sets than he might be at 3 sets, because he's able to really figure it out and not panic. And he might be playing well at the start of a match, but it doesn't mean he won't win the match at the end of it.
And at the end of the day, 5 sets, Grand Slams, that's what counts, isn't it?
That's what you want, right?
You want to be in that present moment. You don't want to have the baggage from the previous set or previous matches. And I think that's true for this generation. Like you said earlier, Sinner and Alcaraz, they don't have that baggage or that heartbreak of kind of growing up and playing, in this generation where it's really unlikely you're going to be able to kind of beat the big three, or when you do get a chance, it's like you've got so much pressure on you to make the most of it because it's slim pickings at the
do
top.
you think it is tougher for the likes of players like Zverev in that generation, where it does feel like, you know, you've got competition on all sides of you? You've still got, I mean, maybe to a lesser extent this season, but, you know, you've had the likes of Nadal, Djokovic, you know, Federer as well, like above you, and then below you, you've got the, you know, the players like Alcaraz and Sinner. Do you think that makes it just like a little bit tougher for them to win a Grand Slam? And that's the reason why, you know, they haven't kicked on as much as perhaps they should have, you know, earlier on.
You don't get that same confidence boost that you get, and you also don't get as many opportunities because there are players that genuinely can outplay you. And there are so many players that they've played who can outplay them, which is quite rare. You know, normally we'll talk about this in the second half where we talk about Iga Swiatek and the fact that she is the player who can outplay everybody right now.
Yeah.
But there aren't three of them. And there aren't, you know, six people who might be across the generations, if you include Andy Murray in that. You've got Jannik Sinner, Carlos Alcaraz, Djokovic, Nadal, even maybe 7 players who are playing some unbelievable tennis. And I think that is a big challenge. I think what will be interesting will be from the dynamic perspective is we're talking about it now in terms of Jannik Sinner and Carlos Alcaraz, you know, almost potentially splitting the slams now. And this was just an unfortunate incident where they ended up being on the same side of the draw. They're now 1 and 2 in the world, yet Carlos Alcaraz has 2 slams to his name.
Yeah.
Jannik Sinner has 1. But if they are in the Wimbledon draw and the rankings stay as they are, then potentially that would be meeting in the final. So I think we've got some stories coming up. But how would you feel being Carlos Alcaraz? You said, Kim, about what you want is the slams. Would you rather be number 1, or would you rather have 2 slams right now?
3 slams, Chris. I have to correct you.
2 slams as in he currently holds Wimbledon and Roland Garros.
As in being currently holding.
Yes.
I'd rather have the 3 slams because he's already has been world number 1, hasn't he, as well?
Yeah.
So, and I think I'm not sure the point differentials, but it's, you know, I can't imagine he's too far off.
It's 1,000 points, yeah.
So I think, you know, depending on what happens at Wimbledon, obviously Alcaraz has got 2,000 points to lose. Sinner, I'm not so sure how many he's got, but probably he will be gaining. But I think are those 2 set, to kind of be the top 2 that we've been, you know, are they the new Roger Rafa? I mean, I don't know. I don't want to put labels on them, but I think, you know,
I'll
it's
put
great
labels
to have
on
them
them.
at the top.
I'll put labels on them.
We're not allowed to use the term big 3.
Yes, we are. I'm allowed
big 2. It's a big 2 now.
It's the big 2 now.
Double trouble at the top.
Oh, we're going to get cancelled for that one. But we have many times across the last 2 weeks actually issued very small apologies to Wimbledon for the fact that we went so hard on that visual. But I think now it's time amongst the 3 of us.
They were 1 year ahead of the game.
They were. We have to make a formal apology to whoever came up with that concept of them at the front, because the image, and I think we can share this again when we will post it on our social media. But I mean, it was those 2 at the forefront, and now it does feel like the optimism and the future of tennis very much is in those 2 hands, Sinner and Alcaraz. So I think it's going to be fascinating how that will play out across the rest of the season. And surely, Joel, this means that when it comes to Wimbledon, your prediction will be Carlos Alcaraz will win, because you do go by the form.
Yes. I mean, he's carrying great momentum now, and it'll be fascinating to see if he can, you know, kick on, and I think hopefully stay injury free. So it'll be interesting to see. Also, Zverev as well. I mean, arguably with the serve that he has, you could say he's got even more of a threat on the grass courts at Wimbledon. So it's not going to be it's definitely not going to be a foregone conclusion. Jannik Sinner as well is probably going to be chomping at the bit. So exciting stuff.
And also he has a great volley. I was actually quite impressed by some of the volleying from Zverev across the tournament. I think I forget that he is as good a doubles player as he is. He's played quite a lot with his brother growing up, I think, in his formative years. Doesn't play that much now. Played a bit with Marcelo Melo every now and again. But
his transition from the back of the court to the front of the court is, I was also impressed with that.
For a tall guy.
Yeah, exactly. The reach, movement, you know, it's good. It's very, very
solid.
Good.
Absolutely.
Part of me was thinking, is he destined to win this title because he beat Rafa in the first round? You know, is this the draw has meant that this is going to happen? But obviously not. However, it's been a great fortnight for him, and you know, he's been able to play some fantastic tennis at times and have this result despite obviously all the stuff going on in his personal life. So, I think that's well, I think, obviously that settlement's been made. I think he'll be looking to kind of focus on the
Do you
on-court
think he's
stuff
going to
now.
win? Do you think he's going to win a Grand Slam? When do you think? And if you do, when do you think that will come? Will it be within the next 12 months, or do you think he'll be waiting?
I personally don't think he will. I think that moment, in many ways,
Has it come and gone?
I think it might have been. I think it was that match with Team. I think if he had have won that, I think he genuinely would have won more slams. I think for Team, it was almost the beginning of the end in some ways, and the burden of expectation that then came from that to try and kind of back it up in many ways. We talk about it a lot. I think it's the mentality. I think unless he's playing against a player who might be a little bit more mentally wobbly than he is, I really don't think he's going to get it done. And I think that a lot of the players who are currently on the tour are more mentally secure in those moments. And I mean, Carlos Alcaraz made the point at 21. He's more mentally secure in those moments than Zverev is. But I think doesn't mean that he might not get the chance if he has the right draw in a final.
Yeah. Do you think, going off the court, do you think he's hurting more from this final, or do you think he's hurting more from the US Open final against Dominic Thiem?
It's got to be the US Open final.
Oh yeah,
Kim? Yeah.
I would think so. Coming
close.
so close, and I think here, you've been outplayed.
4 years ago, he'd have been 23
Alcaraz.
as well. Yeah.
Yeah, he'd been outplayed here by a young prodigy of the game.
Yeah.
So I think there's no shame
It wasn't
in that.
on his racket. Yeah.
I think I can see Zverev picking up
2 sets to 1 up here, though.
Yeah, but just I don't know the nature of those last 2 sets. It wasn't really close, was it? And I can see Zverev maybe picking up a slam in a couple of years, but a bit like I think I said this the other day, like a Marin Cilic. Later on in his career, maybe the US Open, bit of a surprise one. But he's got so much talent. It would be a shame almost for him not to win a slam. But then not everyone with that much talent ends up doing it. It's a tough game.
Like Daniela Hanchikova, exactly.
Like Daniela Hanchikova, they can't all win slams.
Elena Dementieva, exactly.
But we do have some other results that we do need to catch up on from the weekend. And let's look at what else happened today, finals wise. We did have the women's doubles played. Jasmine Paolini was featuring in this one, her second final of the weekend. With her partner Sara Errani. Unfortunately for Jasmine Paolini, she also lost this final because Errani and Paolini were overshadowed somewhat by the eventual champions Coco Gauff and Katerina Siniakova, who did get the title in straight sets. And this now means that Coco Gauff is a doubles Grand Slam winner as well as the singles Grand Slam that she won at the US Open last year. She's now kind of completed the set of both singles and double slams. And again, she's only 20 years of age. So kind of ticking things off at such a young age, just as Carlos Alcaraz is. I know she's been in previous doubles finals. I think she's had 2 previous finals before. I guess I hadn't really registered in my mind that she'd lost both of those. So in a way, I was surprised that she hadn't actually won a double slam by now. But I'm really pleased for her, regardless.
What are Pegula and Krejcikova thinking watching this on?
Oof, well, we all know that partnership split between Siniakova and Krejcikova was not amicable. Siniakova instigated that, and Krejcikova actually still wanted to play with her at that point. So it just shows you that mixing it up sometimes does lead to a better result in this case, because I'm not sure that kind of Krejcikova and Siniakova at this point would have got that win. I think Pegula would probably think how nice it would have been to get the slam with Coco Gauff, because they have been, world number ones together. But I think their focus is on something else. I think it's on the Olympics.
Yeah. So it's interesting you say that, because Coco Gauff has said in press that this is all kind of building up to the Olympics, and after the Olympics, she's going to strip back the amount of doubles activity she plays on the tour. But I was going to ask you both. I thought it was quite interesting because Gauff and Siniakova, I think they're quite accomplished, singles and doubles players. And Gauff spoke about the fact that they decided to play the tournament 2 days before it started. It was very last minute in her words. I mean, does this just show that, I know, Chris, you love talking about the best doubles players are singles players.
It's true.
Does this sort of add a level of credence to that?
I mean, it's undeniable. I think if you look at the men's and the women's tour, when you do see the doubles players playing, I mean, for example, Tsitsipas, he's playing with his brother, who is in no way a great talent. He's carrying his brother in those doubles. He made the quarterfinals here. I think we've seen that when, different players try their hand at it, you can get great results. I mean, We've had a mixed doubles that's happened before, especially because of the fact that they're so good at returning the ball. There's such a high level, like Jankovic winning the mixed doubles. You do see those singles players who break out in these last minute sort of decisions. No, I think it does make that point. I think it shows that, I mean, if a lot of the play, I mean, Iga Swiatek made the French Open final, I think the same year that she, or maybe was it the final that she made as well? Or was it the semi-final?
And then, was it the final? Yeah, I think, she got far in the competition.
That's what I felt. It was the same year she won it in 2020. And then obviously she's dialed back on the doubles. So I do believe the best doubles players are singles players. And that's why a lot of the decision making is to try and get them to play. But then one thing I was going to say, Joel, Siniakova, she hasn't been, I don't think, past round 3 in the mixed doubles. And not from want of trying.
Yeah. Which is surprising because normally if someone's winning doubles,
you're in both finals.
You'd think that they would normally perhaps, pick up a mixed or at least get to the latter stages of the mixed.
I was very surprised by that, you know? Yeah.
I mean, also think that, sorry.
Oh no, it shows that on the women's side you can play both as well, like we've
shorter format,
before. But I also think it's probably sensible for Gauff to dial back on the doubles, after the Olympics. She's won a doubles Grand Slam now.
Give her more time to think about how she defeats Iga Swiatek.
Work on that forehand as well.
Work on the forehand, yes. What drills with Brad Gilbert on the tennis court? We're going overtime.
Yeah. And I also think from this final, I'm kind of gutted for Paolini because we'll get onto the singles final in a bit after the break, but to not come away with one of those titles, it's like double heartbreak. Which
was it her partner
nice.
Though, Kim? I was watching some of the highlights. I mean, it's great for Sara Errani to make the final here. It's very impressive. I think she's 37 and hasn't had the best form in the last couple of years, so it is super nice.
Good Rani, I believe.
Yes, exactly. I mean, honestly, this is your new goat net or whoever it is. There's always someone that Joel
goat Rani, the new goat net. Yeah,
exactly. I think no one else has said that out loud, but now we have put it out there. But I do think that you have to have a player with a bigger serve. And so I think that's why the singles players, if we're being serious,
I'm standing at the net, absolutely.
I'm scared. I'm terrified. If Sara Errani is serving and you're at the net. But I do just think that that's probably why also it makes such a big difference, because the serve is so important. And obviously Coco Gauff has one of the best serves in the game, and singles players, the serve is so important as well. So I think potentially that also might be a reason why they do so well in, especially at the French. There's something about the French where people do make the final in both, because it's happened quite regularly. I think Coco Gauff's done it as well quite recently, but it is
Chikova,
won them both, and that doesn't normally happen. So
so that was the opposite to Paolini. But Paolini, fantastic tournament regardless, and we will get onto the singles final after a quick break. So we'll be back to look at the ladies' final, where Iga Swiatek did indeed pick up her 4th French Open crown. Plus, we'll be unveiling our latest Collect a Set champion. So do not go anywhere. Welcome back to the Tennis Weekly podcast. And before we get on to all of the finals action from Saturday at Roland Garros, we do have a bit of a exciting announcement, I guess, to make about the upcoming grass court season, because, the clay court season has officially ended about, an hour and a half ago. And we're already looking to the grass courts, especially in the UK. Got some exciting news, haven't we, guys?
We do indeed. For all of our listeners, we are very excited to announce we are really upping our content and our activity for the grass court season. We're going to be at Queen's. We're going to be at Eastbourne. We're going to be at the Boodles. And for the first time in Tennis Weekly history, we are going to be at a Grand Slam. We are going to be at Wimbledon for all 2 weeks. We are very, very excited about it. We're sort of still figuring out what the schedule looks like, but we have been accepted by Wimbledon, by the All England Lawn Tennis Club. We're going to be there accredited with our lanyards on, walking about, doing the Tennis Weekly thing. We're all very excited, aren't we?
It's going to be...
They've let you loose, Joel, have they?
They've let us loose. They've let us loose.
I think this is definitely a case that we will be upping our game when it comes to our on-site audio as well, hopefully. I think you've heard, various members of the Tennis Weekly clan recording in cafes and bars and all sorts of locations. And we will be very much recording on site at Wimbledon, which is super exciting. And we're hoping that the expectation will be for daily episodes. And in kind of parallel with this, we will be having a lot more content that will be going out. So we'll be doing video vlogs that will be exclusively on our YouTube channel. And we'll be having memberships. So you can support us there for a very small amount each month. And then across the summer, there will be extra content that you can also enjoy. So we have a very exciting schedule coming up. You can see behind the scenes of what we do. And you can see if Joel behaves himself at Wimbledon.
And you can see my lovely mustache.
I was about to say, are you going to shave it off in sort of
I need
honour
it. I
of
do
being
need a
given-
haircut.
Or check the manual. Check the manual, Joel.
I
Check
have
the
had
guide
good...
to Wimbledon. No
Yes.
moustaches
No
allowed.
moustache.
Lewis Hamilton didn't get into the royal box because he didn't have, what was it, a shirt or a tie on? So Joel, maybe a
Oh, I don't
tash
think
isn't
he had a
allowed in
shirt
media.
on.
Hang on,
Maybe-
I know there's an all white. I know there's an all white policy for clothing at Wimbledon. I didn't know there was a no mustache policy.
I will read that.
They're
Get back
inventing
to
it
you,
just
Joel.
for you,
They're
Joel.
inventing it for
Just to
me.
keep
Okay.
you out. Yes.
Yes, listeners, do watch this space. Like physically watch, because like Chris said, we have a lot of video related content coming out, including this episode, which right now is going to be on YouTube.
We should have said that at the start, shouldn't
I
we?
know.
Yeah.
But yes, so lots to come, very exciting times. So yeah, lots to get excited about for the next month or so. But we do have to carry on with our Roland Garros catch up, because Saturday did see Iga Swiatek winning her 4th Roland Garros title, her 3rd in a row. She comfortably dominated Jasmine Paolini 6-2, 6-1. And she is now the youngest player in history to have 4 Roland Garros women's singles titles before the age of 25. And just remarkable again from Iga Swiatek. First player as well to win it 3 times in a row since Justine Henin in 2007. We kind of knew going into this it was going to be probably one-way traffic. It was very unlikely that Paolini would upset, of course, cause such an upset. Although she did get out to an all right start, didn't she? She broke Swiatek's serve.
Was
Were
as good
you
as
at
it
any
got.
point thinking, "Oh, this could be onto something here"?
You were tweeting, Joel. You like, here we go.
I was tweeting. I was like, "It's happening! It's happening! It's not happening! It's not happening!"
It didn't happen.
Yeah, it didn't happen.
Spoiler alert. Yeah.
Paolini, great start, but it felt like she sort of just angered the beast in Iga Swiatek, and it was one-way traffic after about 10 minutes or so. There were no comfortable service games for Paolini. There were just no comfortable points, to be honest, for Paolini. It was just a real freight train, and it just shows Iga Swiatek at her relentless best. I think it was brutal. It was what you need in a Grand Slam final. You don't want it to be tense. You don't want it to be go deep in the 5th set, go deep in the 3rd set. You just want to get on the court, do your thing, get off the court, and that's what Iga Swiatek did. There was just complete certainty, and her game, it was just, I'm sad to say it, but it was just too good for Jasmine Paolini.
I feel like it was kind of always going to be the case. I think I was probably slightly optimistic when we caught up, Joel, in the semi-finals when I said 8 games. I think you said 3,
which
was the correct
Nailed
answer.
it,
So
I know.
I think for that reason, when we get to it, you may be escaping the slam spoon of
Oh,
shame.
I don't know.
We aren't
it's
decided
the one
yet.
thing. It's the one thing I can clamor to. I think, but
it is indeed. But
yeah,
maybe she heard Iga and she said, "I'll help Joel out because he doesn't normally do that very well in predictions." But ultimately, I think the second week for Iga Swiatek, being courtside for that Osaka match, I was 100% convinced at that moment that Osaka was going to come through. And you just feel like what's very, very impressive from a mentality perspective is that Iga has upped her level so much since that match. She played very well in that match, but I think she dropped the least number of games that anyone has ever dropped in the second week of a slam in history for the women's side, which is so impressive. But I have a question, and I obviously love watching someone play the level that Iga does. It is incredible, but does it make for an entertaining spectacle? Because this is obviously a big topic. Most people going into this match probably thought it would be about an hour. And normally when we go into some of these matches, we don't think it's going to be over that quickly. Does it lose a bit of its excitement, the fact that Iga is playing this well and the rest of the field just can't match her?
I think so. As a fan, you want to tune in and have some.
You want to see a
match where
challenge.
you want to see a challenge. You want to go
Someone to cheer
I genuinely
for.
don't know who's going to win this. It is more exciting. I think unless you're a big Iga Swiatek fan or you just love domination in sports, it's never going to be as maybe fun a watch, but you can still watch it and admire Iga Swiatek for being so amazing at what she does on this court, on this surface, especially at this event. I mean, Paolini said, after that, to play Swiatek here is the toughest challenge in this sport. Would you agree with Paolini there? Iga Swiatek, Philippe Chatrier, Roland Garros. I mean, Osaka almost got the job done. She almost did it in the second round, but everyone else has just not come close.
Yeah, that's a great question, because I think it does come down to the mentality of a champion. I think Naomi Osaka obviously has that. She's proven that. And she does have that ability to go up the gears, even when she might not have the best form coming in. I think someone like Paolini, or a lot of the players that she kind of brushes or sweeps aside, they don't have that confidence in their game that they know they can up it and match it. Whereas I think that even though Naomi has lost to Iga quite a lot, actually, she went into this match thinking, I know I can up my level. I know what my level can be. So I think ultimately it does come down to the fact that a lot of the players that play against her really don't think they can win. And I think that is the big problem. I think Vondrousova in the quarterfinal didn't think she could win. And I think that is because exactly what you've said, this is probably the biggest challenge in women's sport right now, Iga Swiatek in Paris. And I think
arguably across both the
world.
men's and women.
Oh, and the men's,
in the world, in the history of sport. No,
Yeah.
I think generally, it is like one of, if not the toughest challenge across both, like the men and women's games. And I don't think Paolini is wrong. I did enjoy how, I think, there've been similar scorelines as Chris said across the last week or so in terms of Swiatek's matches after Naomi Osaka. I think what was different for me about the Paolini match was that Paolini was always smiling. She was happy to be there. She gave it her best. She had a really positive attitude on court, and I think I like to see that. It wasn't sort of like getting frustrated with herself. It was just like, it's just very tough for her to kind of stop just like this freight train just coming at her with just obviously quite clearly too much for her to handle. And I think this Iga Swiatek campaign, this run, it probably won't be memorialized for the final. It will be memorialized for the fact that she won it from a match point down from the Naomi Osaka match. And again, we talk about her mental approach and how superior that is. I think again, this is just another testament to that fact, the fact that she was so close to going out. Chris, you even thought she was going out.
I drafted the tweet, Joel. I literally
drafted
had
the tweet.
You can never draft tweets,
I know.
Chris.
I've stopped doing it because now I'm
curse on her.
I'm bringing a curse. But I mean, it is just. Do you think that when it comes down to these sort of big moments, though, you said Paolini was really enjoying herself out there. Do some of the players are they trying to avoid the bagel and have a nice day, or are they really in it for the competition? Because sometimes I think that it is a bit strange, a bit like when some players play against Nadal in his peak at the French Open. They don't expect to win, but they want to have a nice day of it. And I really feel like for Iga to have come through this whole clay court season, and she was match point downs, I believe, in Madrid and in Paris, and she's picked them all up. I think you can still take some hope in the fact that there might be opportunities. There might be that day, or Samsonova, I think, at Stuttgart a few years ago, who really pushed her on that winning streak that she had. But do you think that people do get too in their head about it? Then maybe Paolini didn't expect to come out with the title, and the final was enough for her.
It almost gets worse as she becomes greater and you players win more, because it has more of this kind of
weight to it,
aura around her. And then players almost kind of think I'm in awe of playing this person. And this is such a challenge in sport.
You make excuses for it. Like, I think a little bit. Who will
they sort of fangirl a bit.
Yeah, they do. Like, who will be the Robin Soderling?
They're only human.
Who will be the Robin Soderling to Nadal at the French? That's what we should be asking ourselves. It will be one inspired performance that comes out of nowhere, I reckon. I think that will kind of break this run. Otherwise, I mean, when you're looking at how many titles that she's won in Paris, I mean, how high is the ceiling?
Yeah.
Do you think she get 14 like
14,
Rafa?
yeah.
She's so young still.
Well, it's interesting you say that, because I was hearing on commentary earlier about how Carlos Alcaraz is the natural successor to Rafael Nadal, on clay. But I would arguably say Iga Swiatek is more of the natural successor to Rafael Nadal on clay in terms of dominance in terms of even just approaching the idea of winning that many titles in Paris. It feels like across the men and women's game, it feels like there's only one name that you can really sort of get in that conversation alongside Nadal. And to me, it's Iga Swiatek, not Carlos Alcaraz.
I agree.
Yeah, I mean,
Carlos might be in that conversation in 3 years' time if he's backed up those titles and won it as many times. But yeah, I totally agree. But I think people sometimes just think, oh, we've got to split it into men's versus women's rather than looking across the board.
Yeah, and I also think it's so impressive, the journey that she's been on, because when she had that win in 2020 that came as a bit of a surprise, I remember watching her and thinking, this girl does something completely different from everyone else. The way she hits her ground strokes, I was so unbelievably impressed by her. Then she had a little bit of a drop off the following season in 2021. And then I was a bit confused, losing to Sakkari in the quarterfinals there, maybe not getting the results that she wanted at the other slams. And now, just a few years later, we're thinking, will anyone pick up a Roland Garros title in this next decade? It's almost that good that we're questioning it, that if someone will be able to pull an upset or spring an upset in this way, because even Naomi Osaka at match point, Iga found another level to get past it. So it's very daunting, but I guess surprises can happen. Federer did get that token Roland Garros title that year, but it does make me think, is there anyone else on clay especially who could challenge her right now, or do you think it's going to have to come from somewhere else? A Noskova, Kim?
Well, I mean, there's going to be a whole stream of players who kind of get into the final and have that like runners-up trophy. Jasmine Paolini is just the latest one of them. And I had to Google the other day who was in the final last year because I just couldn't remember.
Right?
And it was Mukova, yeah. So it's just going to be a stream of players who maybe won final wonders.
Is that sort of player though?
Do you think Paolini is going to get to another slam final? Do you think
Probably
this was
not.
her moment?
I can't see it. I think I'm not going to lie. I think we were robbed of what I thought was probably going to be the final, Swiatek versus Sabalenka, by what seemingly was an illness or a virus or whatever it was that happened to Sabalenka. And that sort of, I think, maybe robbed us of I think what maybe a lot of fans, were expecting. I think, for Swiatek, the aura she has at Roland Garros is undeniable. I saw a tweet from the French Open account that talked about it's not Roland Garros, it's Poland or Poland Garros.
Oh wow.
Yeah, which I thought was quite clever. I quite like that.
I think it looks better written down than it does said out loud, maybe, but I do like it. But I guess, I mean, the question that I'd have broadly, we're talking about the fact that this isn't the greatest spectacle sometimes because Iga is that good. And it feels like maybe when it comes to, we're seeing what could be one of the greatest like feats in women's tennis of what she's currently producing, but that might not be the most entertaining thing when it comes to those night sessions. And it feels like Mauresmo has been making some comments that make me think that she's almost saying Iga's so good, the match is finished so quickly, we can't possibly put the women in the evening session. And I thought it'd be great to get your take on, is that a cop-out? Because it still is tennis at the highest level. Or do you think there's a way around of scheduling maybe a doubles and a singles? Or is there something that can be done? Because they promised to get better. And I think we had even less women's matches in night sessions this year.
We had 0.
It's got worse. Yeah.
It's got worse. And
I mean, put 2 women's matches on. If you think your matches are going to be kind of shorter, put 2 on in the night session. Mauresmo said that it can't start kind of before 8:15 because people, don't finish work and can't get there before then.
I mean, I finished work at 5. I could get there.
But like put 2 on, and if people want to stay late, we've seen people do stay late. And when you have a night session, there's always the potential that it's going to go until 1 a.m. in the morning. So just put 2 women's matches on. Like that's got to they haven't even tried that, So until they've actually try it, how can they kind of say, oh, it's not going to work? But yeah, I think it's not on that. For several years now, it's been the same scenario. Mauresmo hasn't really done anything about it. And we've seen, conversely, with the fan behavior in the first week, she was very quick to make a decision to stop people in the stands with alcohol. But I think with this, like Ons Jabeur said, it's the TV companies, the contracts. She's probably got her hands tied by that and, those contracts. But it's almost like just come out and say that, don't try and hide it because that's almost worse.
The question I put to you though, would you, if we're trying to be in any way fair to Amelie Mauresmo here, and think about it from the other perspective, if you were to put on the Iga Swiatek match in round 3, for example, I mean, that's a probably bad example because she had a very tough round 2. But do you think that that match would make the most sense at that slot? Or do you think that quite often the men's matches early on tend to be quite tighter in their affairs? Or do you think it very much depends on how the draw pans out and then you would pick? Because I'm trying to think, would you want a 1 hour night session? I do get that. But at the same time, or would people stay for that second women's match? Because then it's an obvious time for people to leave, and then the women will be playing in front of nobody. So I'm trying to think, like, can you win?
They're playing in front of nobody as it is, because they're put
True.
on first thing in the morning when people aren't there either. It seems like the French crowd only like to turn up for a very specific window of time.
Men's tennis after lunch.
Yeah, basically. I think it's difficult because that match, no, I wouldn't have put on in the night session anyway. I would have tried to have picked a more competitive match, but then often that's with people that aren't the top seeds. So it's kind of like, do people want to see the top seeds play regardless
or
of
the
who
French
they're against?
Players, exactly,
or do they want to see a match that has more potential to be exciting and close? And then I guess it is a very difficult decision.
I mean, I think the fact that they didn't put Osaka Swiatek in the night session just shows how far I think they are from even getting to a point of putting these
thinking
matches
about it.
But then the thing
some players don't want the night session, to be fair.
always requests not to do the night session. She says she doesn't want to do it. From a tournament perspective for her progress. And I mean, even Novak Djokovic, will he request next year not to do it? Because arguably that night session and some of the scheduling that he had and the long matches he had were actually the reason why he got injured and got out of the tournament. So, I mean, it's a slot that no one really wants to play in unless you're maybe Mate, for example, or someone like that, where the French players stay and it's an atmosphere that you can't replicate any other time throughout the year. But I mean, there's a problem in the evening sessions. There's a problem when it comes to the equality that we don't see at the French Open. And maybe having a female tournament director isn't the only way that you should be combating that, would be what I would say.
I think there's too many like structural factors at the moment that are kind of holding her, like her hands are tied to some extent. But I just think we don't really have this problem at Wimbledon because we don't have night sessions as a thing. So I'd maybe just get rid of the night session.
Yeah, is the only answer just to get rid of the evening session, just go back to having a long extended day session. I know
there was no problem, right?
I know it was no problem, and I know it's probably a money thing, and the French Tennis Federation looking to make as much money as possible. So that means tickets for a day session, tickets for a night session. Hey, worked for the US Open. But yeah, I think scheduling issues. It's not just the evening. It's that graveyard slot also at the start of the day. You've got women's quarterfinals at 11 a.m. Ons Jabeur wasn't happy about that. So I think there's multiple things around the scheduling. And, Jabeur talked about the fact that the women are almost treated as second-class citizens to the men. And I think it's to me, it's almost the most pronounced, I think, at the French Open of all the Grand Slams at play.
Yeah, I think that's very fair, Joel. And I think that one thing when you talk about scheduling is mixed doubles. It feels like a long time ago, that we had the mixed doubles final.
Because they put on a what?
It's so early, isn't it?
So
Forget
early.
about it.
Yeah, and I think it was Neil Skupski was playing in that match, and I was thinking, oh, it's the semi-final, and then I saw the result, and that was the final, and they actually missed out on that opportunity. But yeah, I mean, it is a strange one, some of the scheduling, because obviously that's not necessarily the ticket it used to be at Wimbledon. Played after the men's singles final, the last thing to be played. It was so fun in
that slot. You'd have all the drama and like mixed doubles. Yeah, it can be dramatic, but it's a bit more kind of lighthearted and fun and a little bit of a breather, I think. But it still can be just very fun and
the cherry on top. I like it as that.
And the fact that, as I say, mixed sport in generally has gone through the roof, I think, in terms of popularity over the last few years. You see the number of mixed events, for example, in the Olympics. To do the mixed event and end it on a weekday as opposed to the weekend, it sort of flies in the face of I feel like what audiences want and what audiences like.
It could be a great bridge, couldn't it?
Yeah.
for women's
I mean, I
tennis.
think other slams have started doing this as well, though, having it earlier. And
like a Wednesday or something, yeah.
I mean, it'd
Put
be
it on
like
the first day.
It'd be like the first
yeah,
day. Yeah, sorry, we're
One
not doing any
round.
rounds.
Yeah.
We're just having one match. It's like just like the invitationals. But I mean, let's talk about the mixed doubles because like you said, Neil Skupski was in the final with his partner Desiree Korjic, but they did miss out. So they did lose to Siegmund and Roger Vasselin in straight sets. Happened so many days ago. But but yeah, unfortunately, no British success in the mixed doubles, although Hewitt and Reed have won the men's wheelchair double, so they are, they have got
Brilliant.
British success in the
I
event.
did enjoy this. I didn't realize this. Roger Vasselin became the first Frenchman to win the mixed doubles at Roland Garros since Richard Gasquet in 2004.
It's been a while then, isn't it? 20 years, blimey. And they were a scratch pairing as well. Him and Siegmund, they literally decided, I think she said that he texted her 2 hours before the deadline. So, well, that says a lot, doesn't it? Like,
that's
just,
a bit like
you never know
how scheduling our episodes works. Joel texts us 2 hours before we log on. We get it
all
done.
panic, all hell breaks loose.
exactly.
Yeah. And let's also talk about the men's doubles because we did have Mate Pavic and Marcelo Arevalo winning this title over Bolelli and Vavasori. So sadly, all the Italians losing in their finals. But Pavic, especially, I mean, we know him. He's a fantastic doubles player, and he has now won the French Open for the first time, which makes him the latest player to have won a career golden slam in the doubles. Just the sixth man in the Open era to do that. Because he's also got Olympic doubles gold, and now he's competed the slam set as well.
And Davis Cup he's won as well. I've just seen that.
And Davis Cup. I think the only thing he needs to do is the tour finals. He needs to win that, and he needs a French Open mixed doubles, and then he's literally completed all of the stuff you could possibly win in doubles.
Oh,
he's
definitely.
He's only 31, so
yeah,
he's
got another 10 years at
decade.
least.
Yeah, I mean, Bopan is still going at 44, so
absolutely. But yeah, this is their third title of the season. And Arevalo also had won this title 2 years previously with Roger. So and fantastic. And also Pavic, he's done all of his slams with different partners. So clearly a very versatile
it's the
player
Elise
that can adapt
Mertens
well
of the ATP tour.
It's interesting because I don't think he's not really, I feel like, celebrated. I think this is a common theme with a lot of doubles players, but I don't feel like Mate Pavic is celebrated for what he's achieved in the game. I mean, the fact that the career Golden Slam, the other players who have done this, the Woodies, the Bryans, and Danny Nestor from Canada, those are pretty big names. Yeah,
that's it.
Yeah.
In the Open era, that's literally it. So Pavic is up with the greats, technically. Although I suppose they've probably got way more titles overall, like the Bryans, so
but still,
he's still got some way to go. You want to do it repeatedly, not just once.
I mean, that is impressive. Someone I was going to say who isn't celebrated enough, actually, is myself on Collector Set, because I believe I've finally managed to not embarrass myself in predictions. Is that right, Kim?
Yes, you have ended Collector Set with 3 correct
50%.
answers. So well done, 50%. Me and Joel ended on 2. Yeah, me and Joel ended on 2. I am willing to accept the slam spoon of shame because Joel did make a really good prediction for the final with the number of games. Paolini.
I'll happily.
I will take that.
And Djokovic didn't win it. I think that was none of our male predictions won. No. You did get Iga, both of you. I did go Sabalenka, but I would say Collector Set absconds me of that error.
Where is the slam spoon of shame? It's somewhere.
It's actually physically in my house anyway, so I'll accept it.
You accept it if it's in your kitchen.
I never had to actually receive it. I think that would be a little bit too humiliating, but we did have a winner, didn't we, Kim?
Yes, it was very close. We had a tie break, which had to decide the winner ultimately of Collector Set. It was between Tennis Yarn and Sue McKenzie, aka my mother.
Sue McKenzie. I mean, honestly, the McKenzies do very well at this, don't they?
Yeah, my dad has won previously.
Yes.
Is
that not sort of awkward, Kim? Because have you?
Do they have a tennis podcast, the McKenzie parents?
Maybe
they've been gloating over the dinner.
Maybe they should. Yeah, exactly.
Tennis Weekly parents. However, we do have a final winner. And it was indeed Tennis Yarn who won, not my mother. It was Tennis Yarn. Well done, Tennis Yarn. We asked both of them how many games the loser of the men's final would get. Tennis Yarn was really, really close. They said 18, and the answer was 19 games that Sasha Zverev won. So we will be in touch with a prize coming your way very soon. And well done.
What an incredible effort, because I've even just looked at this. That was 5 achieved for both of them, and then just one, was it just one round off from the full collector
We
set?
were very, very, very close.
Oh, wow.
For getting 100%. First time ever. Still never happened. We've had a few people get to 5 correct player picks. That 6th one is just it's so close. It's just proving elusive.
Collect
Still
5
elusive.
5 games. We can change it the name.
They were just one round off because I think Tennis Yarn got keys one round wrong, and my mother, Sue Mackenzie, got Collins one round off. So very, very close, but
Amazing.
well done. And thanks to everyone who has played, because thank you for entering. I will be back obviously for Wimbledon with another edition. So get your thinking caps on already. Get your predictions honed in for the next
Pay attention
challenge.
to the grass court season.
Yes. Which is already starting, isn't it? It's underway. I love the fact we had a just on a completely side note, in the Surbiton men's final, it was Harris versus Harris, which I thought was a bit of fun.
In the Surbiton semi-finals, yes.
He's your favourite, isn't he?
I think Lloyd
Harris won. He won the overall thing.
He won it overall.
Lloyd
Did
Harris,
he?
well done.
Joel.
I know. But I mean, okay,
fan.
Finally, very, very quickly, because I know we're running out of time. Final reflections on the French Open. I know you guys did peak, hit, pleasant surprise.
Shall we do one each?
And I was sad.
Do you want to take the peak, Joel?
Can I take the pit? Please, can I take the pit? I have a real big
very
pit.
cynical of you, Joel.
Then Kim and I will be fighting, because last time Kim said her peak was a pigeon. So maybe
I'll do, you do peak. I'll do pleasant surprise. Yeah.
Right. You know what? I think my peak has to be the fact that none of us thought that Jannik Sinner or Carlos Alcaraz were in form coming into this. And we saw that epic semi-final, and we saw one of them go on and win it, because I think if they weren't fit for this tournament, it would be very different. And I think it would not be anywhere near as kind of brilliant to watch as it has been. So my peak is that Sinner and Alcaraz have really brought their game. Their fitness is there. And I'm very excited for the rest of the year of tennis.
My pleasant surprise, aside from the pigeon, and going and finding tea finally as well when I was
tea
there.
At Roland Garros,
the tea bag was nice and posh, so that's something. I think Jasmine Paolini is my pleasant surprise, because she's had a great season building up, and it's nice to see that rewarded with some positive results at slams. She didn't come away with any winners' titles, but I think, like you said, Joel, she's such a smiley player who is a
lovely presence.
It's a pleasure to watch, and really lovely player. And
she embraced being the underdog.
I think so, and I think she, is a credit to the sport, and very difficult challenge up against Swiatek. But I think she's been the nice, pleasant surprise for
we always say we should never finish on a pit, Joel. But is your pit that we didn't take you with us on the Eurostar?
No, well, I mean, it could have been that, but it was a toss-up. I mean, I was going to say the French Open weather.
You weren't even there. You didn't have to
obvious
suffer
pit
through
one.
it.
However, I'm not going to say that because I wasn't there, so I'm not going to say that. What I am going to say, pit. Head cams on umpires.
Oh, they're bad.
That
did not like it. It looked ugly.
They weren't trained in the motion.
Like the French Open is like elegant and Lacoste and fashion on a tennis court, and you got these ugly sticking out head cams on umpires that I just don't think they really elevated the experience. They weren't sleek and integrated into the overall look of the umpires, and I think there are bigger things at play. I mean, Victoria Azarenka on social media, I think she said it right in sense of like, they're focusing on the wrong things here. Don't focus on these things. Focus on the things that actually matter. And I would personally put ladies scheduling at the top of that list. So,
but we're not going to see them at Wimbledon, are we? But you will see us at Wimbledon. And remember to look at the content throughout the period on the grass courts, because the French Open is over, but we are very much ramping up.
We are a go. We are a go. Emma Raducanu's in Nottingham. All the tennis go. I mean, I'm intrigued to see because Stuttgart is on this week. Zverev's still on the entry list. So
he's actually withdrawn now.
Oh, is he already withdrawn?
I was about to say, I doubt he would play that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Well, we're going to wrap it up there. Listeners, I hope you've enjoyed our latest episode of the Tennis Weekly podcast. Remember to subscribe to us to stay up to date on all the action to come from the British grass court season.
We are on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and all major podcasting platforms out there. So if you do like what you're hearing, and we hope you do, then make sure to leave us a rating and a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify.
And if you enjoyed listening to us, you can also follow us on social media, or you can email the show. We're on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and X, Tennis Weekly Pod. And do check out our YouTube, because we will be having some very exclusive and exciting behind the scenes action from the grass court season that we'll be posting throughout the British Summer of Tennis. You can also purchase Tennis Weekly merch at etsy.com/shop/Tennis Weekly Podcast. And you can always email us at tennisweeklypod@gmail.com and check out our website, tennisweekly.co.uk.
And we will be back next week at Tennis Weekly HQ. So I hope you can join us for that. But in the meantime, it's goodbye from Kim.
Goodbye.
It's au revoir from Chris.
Au revoir.
And it's au revoir and goodbye from myself. We'll see you again soon.